A few years ago, I made a video called True Crime Fans Deserve Jail Time. So I'm sitting really hard and thinking what I could title this video to piss off the true crime fans. True crime fans are insufferable. True crime fans deserve death penalty. True crime fans are worse than murderers. A portion of today's video is sponsored by Milano. Milano is a tool to help you organize your creative projects. It's an online canvas designed to help you plan, brainstorm, and collaborate on your ideas. It's great for creatives like myself because it allows you to organize your ideas visually in a way that makes sense to you. Whether you're a filmmaker, interior designer, a writer, maybe even a YouTuber, Milano is designed to help you organize your work. There are over 100 built-in templates designed for every type of creative project. For example, I use the brainstorming template. It helps me keep all my ideas all in one place. When I'm starting to write a video, it is not all streamlined thoughts. Believe me, I wish they were, but that means that sometimes I just need my thoughts to be able to spill all over the place. And having a place where I can organize all of those thoughts, as well as then share with people who are helping me on the video to provide sources or photos or videos that I want help inserting while editing, that is so extremely helpful for me. So within my brainstorm, I have several different boards like my sources, as well as a script draft, which helps me with my works cited, definitions, next steps that I have to complete for this video, as well as everything that I need to do for filming. When you're ready to share your work, you can invite your team to gather important feedback and also be able to collaborate with them in real time. For example, I share this board with Jake, so while he's editing, he's able to see the sources firsthand. Milano is available for free and with no time limit. So sign up for a free Milano account using the link that is in my description. Thank you so much, Milano. True crime fans are really back at it. But even worse, Ryan Murphy is back at it. A couple years ago, I made a video about Monsters, the case about Jeffrey Dahmer that was premiering on Netflix, and it was a show by Ryan Murphy. He was also worked on American Horror Story, Grotesquerie, Scream Queens, Glee? Okay. Anyway, in the video, I basically talked about my feelings and opinions on true crime content, especially victims and victims' families who did not give their consent for that story to be talked about, and how I do not like that. And also the mental effects that consuming a lot of true crime content can have on the noggin, which only more and more studies have come out about that, because recently true crime has become such a popular genre in podcasts, movies, TV shows, YouTube even, and it's like a trope. It's like, I listen to true crime and I'm a freaky weird girl, like, don't fuck with me, I know how you're gonna plan to kill me, like, I listen to true crime, ooh, I am better than detectives because I listen to true crime, I can solve this case myself, nothing can faze me, I can clearly tell the difference between a pistol gunshot and also a shotgun gunshot.
5 things in my In Case I Go Missing binder. I added a hair sample just in case they need it for DNA testing. My friends and exes are the first people they need to bring in for questioning. This might be overboard, but I added clean fingerprints just in case there are latent prints they need to match.
But I have received a fair amount of criticism after the Dahmer video, mainly from true crime fans who don't agree with me, which is okay. And just a lot of comments being like, I just enjoy it. Let people enjoy things. And to be honest, I have consumed a bit of true crime content within the last year, even if my brain or mental health did not enjoy or appreciate that. With the Gypsy Rose case, I was keeping up with that. Also, Worst Ex Ever, Worst Roommate Ever, I Am a Stalker. These are all shows on Netflix. The main thing that I appreciate about all of this content, though, is that it is told from the perspective of the person in which it happened to, which was kind of my main point about the entire Dahmer video. Families of the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer did not give consent to that show being made about them. Furthermore, Ryan Murphy and Netflix basically just cashed a check on other people's trauma. However, Ryan Murphy did not feel like he traumatized enough, which is why he decided to keep the Monster series to keep on going, as well as Netflix. Like, it is still happening. There is a 3rd season coming. I do want to read a quote that Ryan Murphy has said. Murphy has said his primary area of interest was the topic of male sexual abuse, and that he was proud that the series provided survivors of sexual abuse a way to have a conversation. I was never that interested in the Menendez brothers. What I was interested in was the topic of sexual abuse. I was interested in specifically the topic of male sexual abuse, and I want to talk about it. It's something in our culture we rarely talk about. I did think it was outrageous during the Menendez trial that so many men, particularly in the second trial, felt that there was no such thing as male abuse. That was an outrage. I was interested in that, he said. Essentially, Lyle and Erik Menendez were a vessel and like a scapegoat to talk about sexual abuse and their trauma, except not with their consent or permission, and not for their input to actually be involved. And I personally don't think that their trauma or that they themselves have gone through everything that they have gone through for the sole purpose of a show like this being created.
Dimes, motherfucking dimes!
If they want to do that, that is up to them. Before we get too deep into the Ryan Murphy stuff, I just want to say I knew very little about the Menendez case. I didn't want to dive into anything or watch anything, especially not the show, until their documentary on Netflix came out, as well as their podcast episodes that have come along out with it. And I'm so happy that I did so. And so that's why I decided to watch the show afterwards to compare the two. I had already heard that the Menendez brothers were not happy with how the Ryan Murphy show Monsters was going, or that it even happened. And so I wanted to watch the documentary first, compare that and the podcast to the show. Not even sure that I was going to be making a video on it at the time, but mainly for the sole purpose that I'm trying this new thing where I form my own opinions. I got some criticism on my last video about watching Dahmer because I was criticizing it, but I don't think that it's fair for me to make a video about a whole topic or give my opinion on something if I don't actually consume that content. So I want to watch it firsthand, form my own opinions on it, and make a video comparing it all, what I have noticed in the media recently ever since the show and the documentary have come out, and once again, pick a fight with true crime fans. My thoughts on the documentary were that it made me sick. It was incredibly sad. It is not something that you sit down and watch to be entertained. It is something that you sit down and watch because you want to learn about it and educate yourself. But it's not like a sit down, feel good documentary whatsoever.
Something very wrong was happening.
What did he do to you?
I appreciate that they included the brothers as much as possible within the documentary. We don't ever see the brothers talking straight to the camera. The only way that they would be able to communicate is when Alejandro Hartman, the filmmaker, would get a call from the Menendez brothers, in which they would talk only in like 15-minute increments.
My name is Erik Menendez. My name is Lyle Menendez, calling you from Donovan Correctional Facility.
And the conversation would only continue after 15 minutes if the brothers had called back. So if there was a line at the phone that day, or they just didn't feel like calling back that day, then 15 minutes was all they got out of the interview. And it's pretty hard to get into like deep stuff and very personal trauma within 15 minutes, but I think they did a great job at slowly talking to the brothers and not like immediately expecting too much from them. If you didn't listen to the podcast, essentially Alejandro had said that Lyle was the first one to agree to do the documentary, in which then Erik then later on agreed. And their main reasoning was that Alejandro was asking questions that they were not normally asked, and that there was still a lot of things that were left unsaid about their story and about their case. We also got to hear a great deal from Pam Bozanich, which I wish we didn't, which is the litigator of the prosecution, and which just flat out in her interview, she was talking about how she doesn't like the Menendez brothers. She doesn't believe the Menendez brothers, that she believes that it was all fabricated, and that if she also was an immoral person, that she would also help corroborate that false defense as well, and essentially slamming people who are supporters of them today.
The only reason we're doing this special is because of the TikTok movement to free the Menendez. If that's how we're going to try cases now, why don't we just like have a poll? Your beliefs are not facts. They're just beliefs. And by the way, all you TikTok people, I'm armed. We got guns all over the house, so don't mess with me.
It's just a very big shame because I, like many people who know anything about the case or actually take the time to listen to the trial, believe that the Menendez brothers were victims, that they were abused by their parents. That's what makes this case so interesting, is that we're not trying to fight between whether or not these boys are innocent or guilty. We know that they are guilty of committing the crime of murdering their parents. It is just that when this trial was happening, the belief that men could be sexually assaulted was not a belief that they could fathom, which interestingly enough, in their first trial, it was literally split by the sexes. All the women believed that they were abused by their parents, while all the men believed that they were not within the jury. I'm big on believing victims. And I'm also really big into rehabilitation. I left that documentary feeling as though they had served their time. And I personally don't think that serving the rest of their lives in jail, which is what they are expecting to be spending the rest of their lives in jail with no possibility of parole. I personally don't think spending the next 30, 40 years in jail will serve any purpose in rehabilitating them. I think that rehabilitation has been done. And I think it's fair to say that many people are on the same page. Since I already made a whole video talking about my thoughts on Monsters, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I did want to give some thoughts and opinions that are definitely important when talking about Monsters season 2. The show took advantage of the victims and their families. It was a cash grab for Ryan Murphy and for Netflix. It absolutely was. Cashed out on their trauma, did not ask for consent, did not ask for any information, did not offer any money. And a lot of people left after watching that show like, was that necessary? Like, did we need another Dahmer show? Did we need another Dahmer think piece? Did we really? Sometimes true crime content can really be made for good because it is talking about cases that are still open. In my opinion, I think if it's well done and with the permission of the family and cases maybe being reopened or missing persons cases being looked into more, I think that's wonderful for the family. I think that's wonderful for the victims. So doing it in a fashion where you don't ask for permission in the sake of raising awareness, we are all very aware of Jeffrey Dahmer, wasn't necessary to rehash this entire story just for the sake of entertainment, because that's what it is. It's a dramatization of events that had happened. Is that show in that case necessary? A lot of people, like myself, will probably agree, like, no, probably wasn't really necessary. Not to mention casting an attractive man like Evan Peters, which is something that Ryan Murphy does, which is recast similar actors within his work. I'll get into this, but Nicholas Chavez is the next one. Casting Evan Peters as Jeffrey Dahmer did something a bit odd. Like the tectonic plates had shifted, like the air changed, like something shifted, because suddenly we're sitting here being like, no guys, this show is literally to educate people and to raise awareness about what Jeffrey Dahmer did. And now suddenly Jeffrey Dahmer is a sex symbol. Can't take big dick, but I suck on it. I ain't fucking with a pussy. Guys, what are we doing?
I mean, all I'm saying, I would have been a victim.
People ate that show up. I mean, there was literally TikTok trends of people dancing like him. The music that was used within the show was like very popularized, which is like now happening with the Menendez brothers. I mean, literally Milli Vanilli is back on the charts. People dressing up as Dahmer for Halloween. Yeah, but I'm ready though. No. The industry can't take the hood out of me, about to go get some hit. Which granted, yes, people have been doing. The amount of people dressing up as Dahmer in the year 2022 probably would not have happened had Dahmer not come out that year. And I'm telling you right now, the same exact thing is gonna happen with the Menendez brothers for Halloween. It's no coincidence this show came out in October. Ooh, it's spooky season. Let's talk about a real life case. Ooh, let's talk about assault. Ooh, spooky. The same thing is gonna happen. There's this one specific scene within the Monsters show. Literally, there are kids dressed up as the Menendez brothers with guns pointed to their parents' backs as a Halloween costume. That's gonna happen. Which leads me to talking about the second season of Monsters, the Menendez brothers story. My initial thought when finding out what story they were going to cover, at least they're doing it on people who have the opinion that these brothers should be out of prison, right? Okay. We obviously know Jeffrey Dahmer, awful human being, dead, deserves to still be rotting in jail. In the Menendez brothers case, there were 2 victims, not 17 plus. I say 17 plus because there was 17 victims of Jeffrey Dahmer. Then you got to think about all the families and all of the people who are affected by that. Not saying 2 victims is good, but saying, okay, we're going to probably traumatize a smaller amount of people here, I guess. I'm trying to look at the pros here, any pros possible. And surely if the brothers are still alive, they're going to be able to have some say in the show and be able to provide some insight into it all, right? Like, they're going to be able to decide what goes into the show. Like, maybe be producers. I don't know. Like, that's going to happen, right? Wrong. Ryan Murphy, in his own words, has said that he has no business talking to the brothers. The Menendez brothers should be sending me flowers. They haven't had so much attention in 30 years, and it's gotten the attention of not only this country, but all over the world. There's sort of an outpouring of interest in their lives and in the case. I know for a fact that many people have offered to help them because of the interest in my show and what we did. There is no world that we live in where the Menendez brothers or their wives or lawyers would say, you know what? That was a wonderful, accurate depiction of our clients. That was never going to happen, and I wasn't interested in that happening. You weren't interested in ever showing an accurate depiction of the Menendez brothers? What the fuck are you doing? Anyway, sorry. I'm letting my emotions show. I'm so sorry. He was upset that Erik Menendez was not approving of the show, even though he hasn't watched it, because he didn't like how his brother Lyle was represented within the show.
You know, Erik Menendez has spoken out about the show. I think that's interesting because I know he hasn't watched the show. So I find that curious.
And Ryan Murphy said, how can you judge something if you haven't even watched it? How can you make a show about people who you never spoke to, and additionally, you have never lived their life? And Ryan Murphy is like very adamant that he was trying to show all angles of what could have occurred and that it was a dramatization for entertainment. We had an obligation to so many people, not just Erik and Lyle. But that's what I find so fascinating, that they're playing the victim card right now, poor pitiful us, which I find reprehensible and disgusting. I also think that two things can be true at the same time. I think they could have killed their parents and also had been abused. They could have been of ambiguous moral character as young people and rehabilitated now, so I think that story is complicated. But at what cost? Creating a caricature out of a living human being? Is that really respectful? And what are your true actual intentions? Because if his true intentions were to talk about male sexual assault, why does he not approach somebody who actually has a story about their own experience with male sexual assault that wants it to be created into a movie or a show, that is willing to offer their story up to be a retelling of? Why use these men who are clearly not appreciative of you doing so, and if you had no intention of it being accurate? One of the main issues that Erik Menendez had was the misrepresentation of his brother, Lyle Menendez. Within the show, Lyle Menendez is depicted as a very loud, aggressive, angry individual.
Why the fuck would you make up something like that? You're not getting it. You don't fucking get it, Erik. We did it. It means that you don't fucking drink tap water anymore, Erik. I am fucked. I am fucked. Fuck. Don't fucking play that shit with me. Like, why else would they change the time?
I have only watched the first episode of the show. It was outrageous. The playing a song at the funeral, I mean, come on. I appreciate poetic license, but that is beyond the pale. The portrayal of Lyle as this rage-fueled, fly-off-the-handle, aggressive personality is so far off the mark. In fact, when I spoke to Lyle the other night, I said to him, you know, I don't actually think I've ever heard you raise your voice. And he was like, yeah, I don't do that. Like, he really, that's not accurate. I think maybe if the director and the actor had met him for 5 minutes, they would have seen how contrary to his personality that actually is.
Is it really a dramatization of real events if the events that you're portraying aren't even true? Which brings me to my next point. Why did you sexualize the brothers and give them incestuous scenes? Why are the brothers kissing? Why are the brothers kissing in your show? Why are we literally insinuating incest upon the Menendez brothers in your show? That feels like nefarious intent, and not really with the intention of telling the story about male sexual abuse. It just seems more like you wanted to create a show that people were going to talk about, and like, here I am obviously talking about it, but it's from every angle, and people had speculated that the Menendez brothers were in an incestuous relationship. Is that how we are gonna depict real life human beings with like no regards to human life, as if they are not real people whatsoever, but simply just characters and pawns for the sake of your crazy fucking show? The one thing that gives me comfort out of the monster show is the actor who plays Erik Menendez, which is Cooper Koch, who is continuing to talk about the brothers every chance that he gets within interviews, believes that they should be released from prison, and actually went to the prison to meet them with Kim Kardashian. Crazy ass sentence, but it's true.
And she invited me to go with them, and I was like, yeah, I'm so down. And so we went down and we went to this gymnasium where we sat around with 30 or so incarcerated individuals who all shared their stories, and it was very emotional and inspiring. And actually something really interesting, they all said that they came from dysfunctional families, which I found to be, really, really interesting and devastating. And I got to meet both of them and just tell them I believe them and I support them, and I did everything I could to portray them authentically.
Which is something that his co-star had opted out of. It is really clear that Cooper has taken the time to really educate himself about the case, listen to their testimonies. He believes the brothers, and he makes that very clear within every interview, which is not something that many of the other actors are talking about or saying.
I wrote Erik a long time ago. I wrote him like 7 years ago.
Before you got the part?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Just by happenstance?
Yeah.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, I said the same thing that I got to tell him, which is just that I believe him and I support him, and I hope that the tragedy gets healed.
Which I'm sure can be a little bit controversial considering what Ryan Murphy has publicly said about the brothers. When Cooper was asked about what he thought about the documentary, he said that he thought it was great. He said that he wishes that they had included the new evidence that had been presented, which I'll get into. When asked about how he felt that the brothers did not approve of the show, he was very respectful and said that he completely understands and respects that.
Just look him in the eyes. All I really wanted to tell him was that I believe him and that I did everything I can, everything I could as an actor to portray him as authentically as possible. That was really the only thing I wanted to tell him. Other than that, I kind of just wanted to like get to know who he was as a person outside of the guy that I've seen on my phone on testimony and that sort of thing. So yeah.
Were you at least tempted to be like, did Lyle really order 300 shrimp cocktail at the Beverly Hills Hotel without the tails? Slam.
I knew that was not necessarily true. Had said that he's been hearing nothing but great things about episode 5 and that he hopes I win an Emmy, and so that was very sweet. But no, we didn't really get into it too much. I mean, all I can say is that like I just told him that I get how he feels, you know? It's like this is his life, and not even just his life, but like the worst part of his life that like changed his life forever for the worst. So, you know, and he already grew up in a terrible sort of prison in its own right. So, you know, I can only imagine how difficult it would be to have Hollywood, you know, make it into this dramatized, fictionalized story. As much as I love the show. I think the show does a great job of sort of showcasing what happened at that time. But yeah, I mean, it's just difficult, you know? And so I understand how he would feel.
I think it's very nice to see an actor really seeing the person that they are portraying as real human beings and also believing in justice for them and using their platform to actually want good for them in a time where they could just be furthering their own celebrity. On the other hand, his co-star Nicholas Chavez, who plays Lyle Menendez, is kind of in some hot water right now for not being very warm in interviews. Like, oh my God, he's so cold and stoic.
Being in this role for a long time watching it. So.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much and congratulations again.
And he chose not to meet with Lyle in the prison because he chooses to gracefully let his characters go away from him when he is done with them.
What about for you, Nicholas? Do you hope to connect with Lyle one day?
You know, it's interesting. You take on these jobs as an actor, and then I think a big part of that job, at least for myself, is letting it go gracefully and then moving on to the next thing.
And supposedly being on Raya while in a relationship and girlfriend drama and portraying Lyle Menendez in a fabricated, aggressive, and false way. And kissing Chloe Sevigny, that's like all speculation. And also not the main point of this video, nor do I really care about those things. I think it is important to note, though, just kind of like how people are viewing the two actors kind of differently in this all. However, that does not mean that he is any less of a favorite right now, because he is very, very widely and vastly loved because he is very attractive. Like I said, the next Evan Peters, for sure. He has been casted multiple times by Ryan Murphy, the same way that Evan Peters has been in his previous work. Like, Nicholas Chavez is white boy of the month. I'm not joking. The other day I went to a solid core class. It's like, go to solid core. My core is so solid. And they played Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You by Milli Vanilli. If you don't know, that's a very popular song used within The Monsters season 2, which was a song that they apparently played at their parents' funeral, which there are reports of that potentially maybe not even being true. Anyway, jarring to hear that song in a solid core class, first of all. Second of all, to then hear an instructor being like, did anybody watch the Monsters show about the Menendez brothers? So hot, right? Right now, there's just a lot of fan cams and edits.
Hey, Mafia, after what we've been through, I'd like to see you try.
That ass perfect, baby.
And t-shirts being made like with the fake brothers on it and stuff. And it feels very strange considering that this is a story about child sexual abuse, right? Male sexual abuse, child sexual abuse. Like, I mean, literally, Ryan Murphy said it himself. And so it does feel weird and icky to be sensationalizing it all. It does feel weird to be rooting for it as if it is like literally like a drama TV show, because it is supposed to be a depiction of real life people who have gone through some really horrible things and who have also done some horrible things. And although I understand a lot of the love is for the actors within the show, we also need to remember who they are depicting. Like, I have literally seen t-shirts of Cooper Koch and Nicholas Chavez posed as the Menendez brothers, like in the same spot, in the same pose and everything. Is that really genuinely that different from us wearing serial killer merch? Because that's like widely judged, rightfully so. But where do we draw the line when it's for TV shows? You know what I mean? I don't have an answer for that. I'm just putting it out there. Believe it or not, I don't have the answers to everything. I like to believe I do sometimes. I don't have it. But it just kind of feels like, damn, we kind of missed the plot, huh? Which then leads me to the entire case being reopened. The case is being reopened thanks to the attention from the show and the documentary. It's created more of a push for it because of how many people are insisting that the case be reopened, and having new evidence of an ex-Menudo member being assaulted by Jose Menendez, as well as a letter that was found of Erik Menendez confessing about the abuse to his cousin. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that the case is being reopened. I think that they lost their chance of a fair trial, and I think their outcomes would have been so much more different had this been a case today. But I do think that the parasocial relationship that people are creating with the real life Menendez brothers can be very harmful. The Menendez brothers have said themselves that they have received thousands of letters from an outpouring support of people who have gone through something similar as them. Not to mention, the brothers, especially Lyle Menendez, has been doing a lot of work to help rehabilitate and help other incarcerated men who have gone through something similar that they have. When the Menendez brothers were on trial about 30 years ago, they had fans and fangirls waiting for them back then outside of the prison, outside of the courthouse. That isn't really anything new for murderers to literally have fandom. Saying Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, mainly for younger, attractive men. There's even a scene within the show that they depict having fangirls wait outside the courthouse for them. And I'm not saying that we're beyond that, but it still is very jarring to see a lot of teen girls and even young adults, especially on TikTok and Twitter, to basically be in fandoms for the Menendez brothers and also infantilizing them simultaneously. In the documentary, Lyle says, young people have taken the time to figure out what happened and they understand it in ways that older people don't. I feel more hope when society seems to be understanding abuse better. I want to clarify, I support young people being interested in this case and interested in their freedom. However, there is a difference between support and fandom. And I don't think when it's something as serious as crime that there should be fandom. At the end of the day, these are grown men who have committed a crime and killed 2 people. Seeing a lot of infantilization of the brothers is very odd. Lyle never raised his voice. He would never raise his voice.
You think a handgun doesn't make noise?
Well, it can be silenced in some way, I assume.
Right, but do you understand it's illegal to possess a silencer, so it's difficult to get them?
Yes, and obviously it would be illegal to kill us too, but I don't think that would be the concern.
He brought plushies to school with him until he was 17 and made them raise their hand. He had names for all of his plushies. Erik is so cute and soft-spoken. There's all these compilation videos on YouTube of him being sassy, like literal compilation videos, like Erik's sassiest moments on the stand. He's doing a testimony about being sexually abused and you're making sassy compilations of him?
Well, apparently they weren't ordering Chinese food, so I was wrong. Is that right?
It is not a good thing. And it shouldn't be seen as a good thing. And I don't think that that's support. And to prove my point even further, this is something that the filmmaker had said in episode 3 of the documentary. The problem with TikTok can be black and white thinking of the case. Either they are heroes or they are victims. Complexities are very hard to tell in 30 seconds. That's the problem. And then Erik Menendez went on to say, I really appreciate the support of the people who have been there and supporting me for decades, those who believe I shouldn't spend the rest of my life in prison. There's also a nefarious side. There are serious TikTok videos, but there are others that are not. I only see the ones that are posted onto TV. I do worry that the seriousness of my crime not be minimized or diminished. This tragedy has been deep and every member of my family has been affected, and that pain and tragedy can be lost in those TikTok videos. I think it's important to remember 2 people are no longer alive and families have been devastated, and I am at the center of it. I am the one responsible. I do not want that to be diminished or minimized in any way by the people who support me. And I think that is crucial. I think we can sit here and criticize Ryan Murphy, very much so, rightfully so. I think we also need to look at the fangirls and the overall fandom of this case, which then blends into the monster show as well, and think to ourselves, is this the appropriate way that we show our support? The brothers don't need fan edits. I promise you, the fan edits are not gonna get them sent home any faster. Not to mention, their family is definitely on TikTok. Imagine how weird that is to see. Do the actors portraying them need to be sexualized? Should this show have been sexualized at all? Was that necessary? I think it's important that we learn how to appropriately show support for victims. I think their case deserves respect. Their lives deserve privacy. People do not need to be prying into the marriages of neither of these grown-ass men. It's not necessary. It's not warranted. And I promise it's not appreciated. This is not the Olympics on who knows the most. And it's not the flex that you think it is to be showing your support in literal sassy compilation fan edits. Leslie Abramson, Erik's lawyer, literally called Monsters a piece of shit and that she doesn't watch any of the shows or documentaries that come out. And she has said herself, no amount of media or teenage petitions will alter the fate of these clients. Only the courts can do that, and they have ruled. That being said, their next hearing is November 29th. 2024. If anybody is actually truly interested in listening to their truth, they can go on and listen to hours of the Menendez brothers' testimonies, which are not an easy listen whatsoever. Like, it's very, very grueling. Closing thoughts, all this to say, I do think that there is a time and place where true crime content can greatly benefit victims and their families. And I think there is an appropriate and inappropriate way to show your support for victims and their families. And also just reminding you that social media footprint is a thing. You cannot escape it.
Questions for the girls. Is it attractive when we're good with little kids? Is it sexy if we're super protective over you? Are arm veins attractive? Do you think that artists or athletes are more attractive?
And I'm not just referring to Nicholas Chavez. I'm talking about you if you're making a fan cam edit. You also do literally have a social media footprint, so just keep that in mind. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you leave it a like, because it helps me out so much. Also, leave a comment. Anything that maybe I have missed, your thoughts about this all. If you agree with me, disagree with me, I'd love to hear other people's opinions. Make sure you subscribe if you want to be nasty. If not, you're disgusting. Also, make sure every bell notifications on so you know every time I post, or else you are gross. I have a podcast that comes out every other Monday. We also have a Patreon where we post episodes on all of the off Mondays. And Jake and I are going on tour. So if you would like to see us on tour with the podcast, we are going on tour to 6 cities. Potential to more dates being added, because Texas, I hear you. I can't wait to see you all there. This is my first thing where I am planning on seeing you guys face to face, so I'm very, very excited. If you want to follow me on my other social media, Instagram, Twitter, Depop, Spotify, it's just at Nicole Rafiee. And if you want to follow me on my TikTok, it's at Nikki Nasty. And I'm gonna go now. It's pretty late. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the Nicholas Chavez edits bite. Bye.